Right. Hello, everybody. Really good to welcome you here today. We are going to be launching a poll while you're all dialing in. And we, that is me, Jane Fonsale, I'm the Chief Exec here at Working Families. I'm going to review the poll and summarize it. And it's just an opportunity to get everybody to join in. Because, you know, people will be having those last minute, the postman's come, or I've just got to finish this email, or I'm trying to find myself a bit of water. So welcome, everybody. So what is the greatest challenge you are facing in your SME business? And we essentially talking in the first two about staff, retaining staff, finding staff, the impact of Brexit, the impact of ongoing fiscal uncertainty. The Bank of England's come out again today with something else. Energy bills and the cost of living crisis. Are you experiencing reduced customer demand? I can see those numbers going up. And very interestingly, it's the first two at the moment. So, yep, it looks like it is all about staff. And in this case, it looks like it is finding staff that's coming up. So welcome, everybody. While we wait for everyone to join, we're just going to finish that off. Please select your answers, as I've mentioned, and as you're clearly doing. And then we'll be able to have a look at the results. As I hope you all heard when you joined, we are recording today. So anyone who can't join us will be able to watch it later. I know for me, that's so often been a get out of jail free card. If I've suddenly been called away, it's just been really useful not to have to miss things. I'm also trialing for the first time, and this is personal information, I'm trialing standing while doing this presentation. So if I move around too much, apologies. I'm not quite getting my steps in because my feet are very firmly together with excitement, but it's going to be a good session. So welcome, everybody. Really, really brilliant to have you join us. We've had about half of everybody participating in the poll. I can say confidently that it is now retaining staff and finding staff, with finding staff being the thing that is the most important thing. And I think today, we absolutely are going to have some really helpful takeaways for you, which you should be able to implement really quickly. So as I mentioned, I'm Jane Fonsale, and I am the CEO here at Working Families, and I am welcoming you to National Work Life Week 2022. This week, we're discussing and focusing on how to increase access to flexible working and to flex in every role. Our discussion today fits very nicely into that theme, and please join the conversation on social media with the hashtag #WorkLifeWeek. A bit about Working Families. We're the UK's national charity for working parents and carers. Our mission is to remove the barriers that people with caring responsibilities face in the workplace. We do this in three key ways: by empowering working parents and carers through our free legal advice service, by supporting employers to improve their flexible and family-friendly work practices, and by driving legislative change by influencing policymakers. I'm delighted to welcome you here, and this webinar is on bringing out the flex in your small business. There are 1.4 million SMEs in the UK, employing 3/5 of the UK workforce. You're clearly the lifeblood of the UK economy. But when it comes to flexible and family-friendly working, SMEs have unique challenges. Many don't have specialist HR and D&I personnel to focus on these issues, which means that you need to find innovative solutions to support your people. Our expert panel today are going to give their valuable insights on how to unlock the flex in your small business to improve performance, retention, and staff well-being. And I'm delighted to introduce our panelists to you. We've got Saira Demmer, who's the CEO of SF Recruitment, our sponsor for National Work-Life Week. Saira, thanks for joining us today and for your support this week. It's really appreciated. Heather Melville-Hume, who's the Senior HR Manager for Independent Living Scotland, and John Mortimer, who's the Chief Operating Officer for Real PE. And first, I'd like to hand over to Saira to talk a bit about SF's recruitment partnership with working families. Then I'm going to ask the panel to present on their experience with flexible working. So first, Saira, over to you.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Jane. So yes, I'm Saira Demmer, CEO at SF Recruitment. We are a recruitment consultancy focused on the finance, technology and professional services sectors. And I've been with the business for 3 years now, and in that time period, we've been on an enormous transformation that's seen us go from being a very, very traditional, rigid business with fixed, long working hours, zero flexibility options, and relatively low employee engagement and high employee churn at the time, to today being a fully flexible business. We've gone quite extreme on the flexible end of the spectrum. And we now have much higher employee engagement, very, very low employee churn now. And we've been able to unlock our growth capability from being a business that was flat, struggling to scale, struggling to grow, to now being in our 3rd year of more than 50% profit growth year on year. So it's been incredibly impactful for us. And when the opportunity to partner with working families came up, it was an opportunity that we just couldn't pass up. You know, we know how impactful it's been for us and our people, and we were really excited to join in, you know, all of the great activities that are happening this week and support in any way that we can.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Saira. That is extraordinary. 50% profitability increase every year. Wow. As a charity, I can't tell you how much I envy you. That would be a lovely position for us to be in.
Thank you.
So thanks very much, Saira. I'd now like to start our panel discussion. We've asked everyone to prepare a brief presentation based on 3 questions. And those questions are: what does flexible working look like in your organization? How do you recruit flexibly? And how do you make your organization the best place to work? So Sarah's touched on what's happening at SF Recruitment. So we're going to start with Saira. Then I'm going to move on to Heather and finally John. And what we're going to do while each of the panelists is talking to you and presenting on those 3 questions, the rest of us are going to go on mute and turn off our cameras so that we're not distracting from the main presenter. So thank you very much, everybody. And Saira, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. So as I mentioned, we've been on quite a transformative journey, and where our fully flexible offering started from was around the time of the pandemic. You know, of course, lots of businesses went through this huge change. And we found that not only was our business doing surprisingly well working at home, but we were finding that our people were actually a lot more productive. I myself actually had my first child right around the time that the pandemic hit. So having the personal experience of juggling work and home and seeing a lot of my employees doing a similar thing inspired me to really push, to really embed this new model into our business moving forward. So what do? We, first of all, operate a hybrid model that allows our teams to benefit from both home and office working. Being a people business, it's incredibly important that we find ways to bring everybody together regularly, to collaborate, to share market knowledge. And so we operate it in a way that our teams have the autonomy to decide which their days are that they come in together. Nothing's forced or mandated from the top. The only ask is that the teams do regularly come in together to collaborate, to work together, to be in the office and to connect. And typically, most of our people have come up with an answer that sees them in the office as a team 2 days a week. Some do Monday and Thursday, some do Tuesday and Thursday. Thursday seems to be a popular day for some reason, but that's how we operate our work and home dynamic. Secondly, on all the other days, we have a work wherever, whenever, however policy. which means that our people have complete autonomy and trust to operate their own working hours, to do whatever they need to do at whatever time of the day. So if they need to nip out to get their kids at 3 o'clock, if they need to go and get a hair appointment because that's the only time of the day that they can do it, and then they'll be back on later on in the evening, that's all fine. We don't interfere. The only ask from us is that you never drop the ball on doing your job, that you deliver, that you focus on a good outcome for your clients and your candidates and your team members. The rest of it is completely up to you. And then the final piece that's really underpinned this flexibility has not just been flexibility about working hours, but flexibility about how you actually do your job. So by introducing this new model, we've been able to attract a higher caliber of individual to our business. And when you do that, the amount of trust that we've been able to then give to people to say, we trust you to know your clients, to know your candidates, and know what's best for your marketplace, particularly because when you're working with candidates who are going through important decisions for their own careers, a lot of these phone calls happen in the evening, they happen early in the morning, around the time that people are not in the workplace or, you know, doing their job and don't want to be having awkward phone calls. And so there's a lot of flex required on our side anyway to mirror our markets. And having previously had a one-size-fits-all model where everybody had to work the same hours, we've now devolved that decision-making to our people to say, you make the choices, and as long as you're doing the right thing for your customers, then we're happy. So what we've found is that level of choice and decision-making capability that people have, a lot of the time people don't use it. People don't actually work a different pattern of hours than they would have in the olden days. But having the choice and having the ability to not be stressed, for there not to be any anxiety around, I'm going to be 5 minutes late because, you know, my kid didn't wake up this early enough this morning, or whatever it is as traffic. That's had such a huge impact on people's focus, on their productivity, and on their ability to be really, really engaged and focused in the workplace. And the impact that's then had, as I mentioned earlier, not only are we growing much faster than we used to, but our churn rate has dropped from 46% before we had this flexible policy all the way down to 14%, which has just been transformational for us as a business. In a people business, to have such a huge shift, as you can imagine, has been a key driver of what's underpinned that growth for us. It's also driven a huge amount of employee engagement for us. We were lucky enough to be voted one of the top 10 businesses to work for on the best companies league tables this year. And I'm just going to answer the questions in a slightly different order, because a lot of what's driven that employee engagement piece for us is around the other things that we've done to make this a great place to work. So yes, it starts with the flexibility, but alongside introducing this, we also we introduced a full-blown employee-centric model in our business, which means that in addition to having autonomy to choose how they do their jobs, we also have created a number of channels now for our employees to feedback upwards. There's a lot of access in different forums for them to come up with their ideas, to make suggestions. We implement 75% of the suggestions that they make. Some of them, as you can imagine, don't always come with the right commercial lens, but we do work with them so that the ones that don't get implemented, they understand why we've made those decisions. And we've also changed our management structure so that it's much flatter, and so that the distance between any employee in the business and a decision maker is much, much shorter, so that people really feel that they have that ability to impact the business. So that's been one thing that's really driven our employee engagement. I think the second thing has been spending a lot of time on non-work stuff as well. So we do a lot of charity days. We did a dragon boat race a couple of weeks ago, which saw us competing against 26 other businesses in our local region, all for charity again. We did a month-long litter pick to say thank you for having reached a certain number of followers on LinkedIn. We went and picked, I think it was 20,000 pieces of litter from the local area. And a lot of these things that take time away from the desk and create an opportunity to bring people together, as I'm sure, you know, many SMEs do on a regular basis too. Those things are all a great opportunity to drive more employee engagement in the business. And then I think the final thing has been actually treating people like grown-ups. So when we talk about flexibility, because we offer a very, very flexible model, we've had to learn our way into it, but we've become increasingly less afraid to be honest about the fact that flexibility goes both ways, and that sometimes the business needs you to lean into work. If there's something going on, or there's a big project, or there's a big deadline, we need you to flex this way towards us. At other times, when people need to be more focused on their families, or they have something in their personal life, then the flex goes back the other way. And I think that's been really important for us in unlocking the fact that flexibility has been a path to increased performance and increased productivity, rather than being something that's seen as a benefit or being dilutive to our business. And then the final question around how do we recruit flexibly, because we obviously recruit both on behalf of ourselves and our clients, the thing that we see as a common thread is that the starting point is very, very important. If you have a clear, flexible policy, candidates like that, they want to know where they stand. They want it to be clear from the get-go. Quite ironically, if you're flexible about what flexibility looks like, that's a real turn-off for a candidate, which sounds a bit counterintuitive. But particularly when we're recruiting on behalf of our clients, what we find is that businesses that say we're open to a discussion, candidates don't like it because it puts the onus on them. They want to make a good impression. They don't want to seem like work isn't going to be their top focus. And so they will typically shy away from those conversations. Whereas when the starting point is, here's a clear policy and everybody in the business or everybody in the team that you're going to be joining adheres to this same policy, then candidates, they've got the clarity, they know what it's going to look like, and they're much more likely, good quality candidates are much more likely to apply for the roles. And so for our own business, we have also done a similar thing. We have embedded all of the outline of our flexible working policy into our employer brand brochure, which every new hire in our business has access to during the recruitment process. So it's clear up front. And all of that has resulted in, as I said earlier, not only phenomenal employee engagement, growth, and a drop in churn rate, but the final piece that we're really proud of is that our productivity, which in our business is measured based on sales per consultant per month, has actually risen by 80% since we introduced this. So all in all, very positive for us.
Wow, Sarah, I was so excited there. I came back in and out again. Sarah, that is absolutely extraordinary. An 80% rise in productivity, a reduction in churn from 46% to 14%. And you've had a baby.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was really struck by the fact that your focus is on people, 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 people. That was a really interesting thing for me, the thread that ran through all of that. And also for us as an organisation, we're always terribly excited when people have some data to back up the things that they're saying, because we think it's so helpful to everybody else. But wow, I'm really fascinated to hear what questions we're going to have later on.
Thanks
so
very much.
Sarah, thanks very much indeed. Hugely excited by that. So Heather, if we can now move over to you, that would absolutely be brilliant. And once again, I will go on mute and stop my video.
Thanks very much, Jane, and thanks to Working Families for the invite this morning. A fantastic start from Sarah there, so a hard act to follow, but I'll do my very best. Good morning, everybody. My name is Heather Melville-Hume. I am and I have the absolute privilege of being the HR manager at Independent Living Fund Scotland. Whilst I've been in HR for over 20 years now, making the move to ILF Scotland in July 2021. As a newly disabled person, having had a stroke, got married, and then suddenly widowed, all within a 6-month period, flexible life balance, working and wellbeing culture was absolutely key for me. And joining ILF Scotland has been completely life-changing, and it's really enabled me to continue my professional career whilst being able to lead and champion the life balance flexible approach to work that we have here at Independent Living Fund Scotland. I do have the difficult job of continuing to enhance and improve what we've done. And I say it's difficult because it's just how we work at ILF. We always have done, but we recognise that we've grown, and we're probably maybe one of the few organisations that have grown during COVID, and we grew by almost a third to just over 60 people. And but we know that it's important that we need to sort of reset and support our managers and our colleagues, because we want to do better, and we're continually evolving in terms of how we navigate sort of COVID recovery for our colleagues, but importantly for the disabled people, their family members, communities and organisations that we support. We are a non-department Scottish public body. We were created following the closure of the UK ILF fund in June 2015, and we support and fund existing recipients in Scotland and Northern Ireland, and have been doing successfully for 7 years now. We distribute annual funding of approximately 60 million to support individual recipients to lead independent lives. We have a staff team now of around 66, and again they provide award management services to over 5,000 current fund recipients, and again that's split between 2 funds of existing recipients and young people in our transition funds from the ages of 16 to 24. We're fully funded and accountable to the Scottish and Northern Ireland Government Ministers, and we do that via our board of directors. We are absolutely a values-based organisation, and we take a values-led approach to everything we do, and it's always about doing the right thing for our colleagues, our stakeholders, and of course, importantly, our recipients. We have worked closely with organisations like Working Families and others who have been absolutely fundamental in our own journey to ensure that we're a more flexible and a more inclusive workplace. And we were able to pivot really quickly as a workplace to respond to the COVID epidemic, again enhancing not already how we were working, but we actually didn't miss a day in supporting over 5,000 disabled people across Scotland and Northern Ireland due to that flexibility that we offered each and every person that works for us. Alongside that sort of suite of life balance culture, again, that enables us to recruit and retain the best talent possible. We absolutely have an aspiration within ILF Scotland to make independent living a reality for all disabled people. It's what we champion, it's what we drive, it's what we influence. And we do that by giving staff choice and control, as we do with our recipients. We want to enable people to get the best out of them. They in turn deliver better outcomes for disabled people. And again, that ensures that we have that inclusive and diverse workplace, and again that adds to a really fair economy in both Scotland and Northern Ireland. So we see ourselves being quite influential and positional in terms of what we do. We've also established ourselves as one of the highest performing public bodies, and we're highly regarded by disabled people and their family members, and it shows the amount of money that is spent in terms of what we do is tenfold in terms of that investment in local community. So again, that opportunity to give back to local economies. Absolutely delighted to be recognised by Working Families as one of the top 10 employers. It's been fantastic over the last 6 years, and it makes us really proud to do that, and the only reason we're able to do that is because of the people that we're able to recruit and retain. I think leading on to some of the questions that we've been asked to share with you today, again, what does flexible working look like in our organisation? The best way for me to do that is to share some information from the colleagues that I work with. Certainly for me, it's been that opportunity to have that trust and confidence in my ability to do the job, but being able to balance the challenges that my disability sort of shares and that I have, but also in terms of being able to work the way I want and how I want, while still delivering outcomes from the people that I work with and for. I think we have other people. Our head of finance, Nadeem, he joined back in 2015, and he talks about having that sort of better work-life balance, that better quality of life with his family. But again, just that opportunity that Nadeem, as our head of finance, he leads by example. We proactively encourage that flexible working. He works around, he makes sure that his workday enables him to go and pick up the kids from school, to attend personal appointments. He just feels more productive being able to do that because he has that choice and control. And he talked about the fact that this was priceless, literally priceless. Jo, our security and resilience business manager, again, has been with us for 3 years now. And again, a working mum of 2 primary school children. Again, the culture and flexibility that we offer in ILF means that Jo plans and prioritises her workload around her family commitments. So again, it's about that life balance. She is completely supported and feels fully supported, which is really great, around the job that she's doing. There's that absolutely inherent trust and confidence in terms of her doing her job. She doesn't have any anxiety around flexing around her work activities in order to, you know, take the kids to schools, to attend school activities. She can be really flexible in terms of how she manages that. And actually what she's saying is that she never has any hesitation in terms of going that extra mile for her colleagues and her team, because she knows that flex works both ways, similar to what Saira was talking. I also spoke with Hannah, who's one of our assessors, so frontline, working with our recipients in their homes. Hannah joined around September 2021 last year, and she has said, similar to myself, that it's been life-changing. It's been a really positive impact for her in terms of not only reducing her 10-hour commute a week, but also that opportunity to get involved in volunteering, to really get to know her recipients and to work flexibly around their availability, and the importance of that sort of trust and autonomy provided by her team and her team leader. She just knows how much it's enhanced her productivity and her engagement, and we've seen that in terms of Hannah's impact with us. Finally, Alan, who's our service delivery manager, and again, Alan has been with ILF since the very beginning, and again, Alan used to be an assessor and has really worked his way through the organisation in terms of us being able to retain his talent and his knowledge. And again, for him, it's allowed that work-life balance in terms of, he's talked about, he's recently taken part in the Great North Run. He's talked about going to do training for that, and being able again to flex around how he's feeling and how he's working. And again, there's no issue in terms of the working hours that he does. And probably like many people during lockdown, he took ownership of a French bulldog, and again he works that in to his working day, and again that in turn supports his well-being. And again, that trust and flexibility really motivates Alan to do the very best job he can for his team and importantly for our recipients. So just some examples of the people that work for us and how we've been able to recruit and retain talent. How do we make ILF the best place to work? Yeah, I think, again, I do have that difficult job in terms of trying to enhance. We do already, but I would say that's really threefold. One is the fact that flexible working isn't purely about hours or attendance. It's that philosophical approach to understanding people's personal circumstances, and actually acting in those early stages to make things work for the individual, because in the longer term it means we can retain the high caliber, highly motivated and loyal individuals. We're able to retain that talent and experience for longer. We're able to reduce our overall recruitment costs, that instability, those productivity gaps, and we're not always trying to backfill or recruit staff at the same time. And that in turn leads to better outcomes for our recipients. I think the overarching philosophy is about how much we care about our people and how much they care about the recipients. And again, actually that caring approach makes hard business sense, especially for a small organisation with limited financial resources. We don't have the ability to offer performance-related pay or bonuses. We're not able to offer preferential negotiated contracts. So we have to get things right from the first time. And that caring culture is highly business focused, because again, it allows us to attract, recruit and retain staff, and for them themselves to achieve those high levels of output. And we have a very low sickness, absence and turnover. I think it's less than 1% at the moment. And financially, again, that makes a huge difference in terms of cost reduction and that long-term retention of experienced and highly motivated staff. Certainly in my 20 years in HR, I've never worked with such a highly motivated and engaged group of staff, and I feel really fortunate to be part of that team. And working for ILF Scotland is addictive. There's no getting away from it. You know, we recruit the best people, we want to retain the best people, and we absolutely go out of our way to do everything we can to keep them. I think the other important thing for us is that all our senior managers, and whilst everybody is a leader in our organisation in terms of leading by example, our senior managers model our life-friendly approach, and they're sending that message to everybody that this is normal to have a life and a professional career, regardless of your role, regardless of your grade in the organisation. There's a real sense of cohesion and commitment and confidence in each other that, again, you will flex in and out of the organisation and the work that you need to get done to support your life. And equally, similar to what Saira was saying, you'll lean in when we need a bit more support. And again, that's been really helpful for us in terms of establishing ourselves and establishing our reputation as one of the most highly performing public sector organisations. And again, that's all to do with flexible working. Thanks very much.
Heather, thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. My reflections, wow, a stroke 2 years ago. I mean, it's extraordinary. And to have lost your husband, that, yeah, there are no words to describe how appalling that must be. So thank you for being here with us today.
Not at all. Not at all. It's a pleasure.
And then growing by a third, and your focus constantly that I kept on hearing the whole way through was choice, control, autonomy, and your senior people leading the culture. Absolutely amazing. There may very well be a flurry of people wanting to come and work for ILF. You've described it so well. It just sounds like a great organization. And yeah, I do not envy you your role of having to try to keep it improving all the time. So Heather, thanks very much indeed. And John, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jane. And wow, I've got the big task of following such a passionate delivery from Heather. So thank you very much for that. I'll just quickly share my screen. I've just pulled together a few slides. So just indulge me as I transfer over to that. And let me know if you can't see those slides. So my name is John Mortimer. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Create Development. We have a number of companies that kind of sit under the Create umbrella, and I head up that is Real PE. We also have the development wheel. We also have our revolutionary new Burst app as well. And this is effectively our vision for every child. And we obviously during the last number of years, this has become a lot more important. You know, the pandemic's thrown a lot of things into the mix, and it's kind of really highlighted these inequalities. You know, and it's a greater problem right across the board now. Children are less active. Less engaged with unstructured play, and therefore it's really having a negative impact on their physical well-being. So it's really essential that we provide the right opportunities and experiences so they can springboard for a future engagement with being physically active. And this is everything that we do. Create has a just cause, and this effectively is our vision. And this is why actually aligning with working families makes so much sense to us. You know, it's based on the importance of the active, healthy children, and we definitely will achieve more. And this beginning in their home and their community and their schools. So really what we're looking to do, you know, in terms of our mission is to redefine what's possible for PE, sport and physical activity through a positive and inclusive culture. And that positive and inclusive culture also means obviously us approaching that in terms of our business. So like Heather, I have a distinct pleasure of leading an amazing team of creators whom all work within the education sector. Primarily, we support primary schools within the UK. However, we do have a small number of international schools. And we support primary schools to enhance their PE experiences for every child, teacher and family. And we've been a growing company. Our membership has grown about 45% over the last year. We have about 45 employees, and that's a mix of people that obviously work out in the field and go to schools to support them. And then we have a core team around our central operations in London. And these are such a high quality team of creators. They really are wonderful. They're exceedingly knowledgeable and very passionate about it. And they absolutely love what they do, and they bring the sunshine to support our schools. And obviously for us, in terms of retaining those and recruiting future talent is exceedingly important to us. So we were asked to kind of present what does flexible working look like for a team of creators. So for us, it's literally around allowing them to be present. And we've done flexible working for many years, really, and it's been quite intuitive for us in terms of how we approach that. This year, we've taken it further forward and been a lot more formal about how we've delivered that, and we've started to really the process of writing our flexible working policy. And specifically, obviously, working around the education sector, it's quite a challenge because obviously we're dictated by the hours that obviously the schools work and when they want us to be in schools. So we have a number of teams that work different working patterns. You know, there might be 2, 3 or 4 day a week contracts. The start and finishing times, it can be different. And obviously it's working around that people have the ability that obviously those that work in the field, they can work it around, they work from home. Obviously some of our creators just work term time only. But for us, you know, the ability that our creators can be present, it comes around obviously that's the real value that flexible working offers them, and therefore it gives them the truly it does bring this life balance, because we don't really like the phrase of work-life balance. It's almost like work and life are working against each other and you're constantly kind of trying to dictate those things. We like the fact that actually the flexible working really does truly bring life balance, and they can be present at those key moments, specifically when they're at work, and then obviously more importantly when they're with their families. And I'm sure Sarah would love for me to be able to push out some lovely retention stats, which I just don't have, I'm afraid. But what I can say is that we do an annual staff survey every year, and our employee net promoter score rose by 30 points this year. And you know, creators obviously have a lot to say in terms of obviously them recommending that this is a wonderful place to work. And we had a host of wonderful milestones this year, where I think we had between 5 and 6 creators really celebrating kind of 5-year, 8-year, 10-year milestones. And then in terms of obviously what that looks like from us as a recruitment perspective, we've really taken this forward. And I said like earlier, we're formalizing that process. So we're writing that into our job description. We've added in a simple label within all of our adverts that obviously talk to us about flexible working. And this has been really key for us in terms of obviously attracting future talent. In fact, one of our most recent recruitments, that was one of the reasons she chose to join us over other organizations that she was given offers for, is because we had that flexible opportunity. And that was obviously the distinction between coming and joining us as a company versus one of our competitors, which, you know, if that's a reason to do it, then obviously, you know, we're all on board. But obviously for us, it's more about really allowing our creators to be present. And then obviously, why does Create such a great company to work for? I said, obviously, I joined this company about 2.5 years ago. I was looking for something magical, and I generally feel exceedingly lucky to find a company that just ensures that it puts its people at the heart of everything we do. Every year we do an annual staff survey where we're asking for exceedingly real opinions in terms of from what creators are thinking, but it's not just in terms of asking those, it's then obviously how we kind of lead that forward in terms of really bringing out some cultural change. And last year we launched the forming of a staff care group. So the staff care group now will look at the feedback and look at the opinions of our teams and make propositions to the board. So there could be an anything goes kind of suggestion, and then obviously those things are then considered in terms of obviously how we can improve situations for our teams. We've added a well-being section into our company conferences, so we've always had the ability to obviously think about how we can obviously make those conditions better. And then the other part there is obviously we've relaunched what we call Ask Us Anything sessions, and these are obviously forums that we've done online where people can come and give their opinions and thoughts direct to the leadership team. The other part that obviously we just launched out yesterday is we've done a payment to all of our payroll staff just to support them in paying their bills in terms of the current cost of living crisis. And we did that to then that'll be paid out to everybody in November. And obviously, as we come into the winter, just to help support and take that burden from our payroll people. But then in terms of what it looks like going forward, we're really looking at that employee life cycle and looking at how we can personalize those things for those people in terms of their journey, those that have recently started with us and those that are more in terms of those 5, 8 and 10 year working times. Enhancing our benefits package and constantly just reviewing what our policies and various making sure that we update on them, because effectively, these are things that we just want to constantly improve on, for the benefit of our creators and their families. And then we just had some unique ideas in terms of how we bring things to life. So last year, obviously, we were really late to National Work Life Week. Actually, it was a suggestion from the staff care group or one of the people within that we take part in National Work Life Week. So we rallied around that quickly because we only had a week or so to do. So we sent everybody cake making kits. And this was just a way in terms of how we can start to get people openly talking about things that we want to engage with. And this was one of the things we did. So everybody had the opportunity that week to do some making as a family, and we made sure that obviously they picked work time to do that. And sorry to bring these lovely cakes out just before lunch. But this year, we've been a lot more structured in our approach in terms of how we've obviously got on board in terms of obviously raising awareness through National Work Life Week. We sent out vegetable growing kits. So we have, again, ring-fence some time for everybody to kind of do that with their families and just have an engagement. And then we've structured various bits of podcasts, blogs, videos, links, and activity challenges this week. And we've picked a different heading for all of the days, just to really kind of bring things to life, really. So again, raising awareness. But that's pretty much just it for me, really, to be fair. We're a growing company, and as we grow, we're adapting and learning. And obviously, we're kind of taking these things to how we write these new policies. We review our old ones, and we're not perfect. We know that, and we want to continue to improve, because that's what the high quality people that we employ deserve. And then definitely, obviously, we just want to strive to improve the creators for creators and their families. And effectively, it comes down to us obviously practicing what we preach. So when we go to change those cultures within schools, we've also got to embrace that change for our company. But thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me. Really appreciate that.
Thanks so much, John. I love that you were looking for a magic experience. And certainly your visuals are absolutely fabulous. Just so lovely and fun and warm. And I imagine, it kind of gives me inspiration to get moving, and that takes quite a bit. Again, John, what I was really struck was, I loved that thing about being present. And like you, I'm not the biggest fan of the phrase work-life balance. It kind of reminds me of that, you can have it all, to which my response is, well, no, you can't. And definitely not all at the same time. But great to hear that you're changing, and great to hear that you're constantly looking to improve.
Thanks, Joe.
So thank you, everybody. That has been amazing. We've already had some questions coming in. And so what I'd like to do is ask the panelists to all come back on in terms of their videos. We've got some questions, and there's one that I'm going to leave just to the end. So I will go around all of you, and there is a question that I'm going to ask you. And the question is, what is the one piece of advice that you would give SMEs who are starting or improving their flexible working journey? So keep that running in the back of your minds. But what we're now going to start talking about is those 4 questions. One of them is, how did you get buy-in from senior leadership to start or continue your flexible working journey? And if I could start with Saira.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. When we started this journey, the leadership team that we did it with was the same leadership team that had been in the business for a long time, so had known it the other way. And look, I think the honest answer is I had to ask them to get behind me and take a leap of faith and trust me. And many of my leadership team had worked in the business for more than a decade and had never been in an environment of flexible working, whereas I had in my previous role, and you don't know what you don't know. And so I think on the back of having been successful with a number of other business decisions, they were very willing to get behind me and trust and take the leap of faith. But I won't pretend that there was any magic formula to convincing them. I just had to jump in and show them that it could work. But actually, in credit to them, within only a matter of weeks, not only did they get behind it, but they started to point out very quickly that it had made their own lives easier because they didn't have to spend time micromanaging, checking what time people were in, all that kind of stuff. So we got there quickly once everyone had had a little shove.
Brilliant, thank you. And Heather, what was your experience at ILF?
Yeah, so it was absolutely flipped the other way around, whereby I needed to understand the choice and control that we'd given and actually encourage others that had joined the organisation like me during the pandemic about, you know, did we need to ask for permission, because it was a completely different culture, because it was led from the top. Yeah, you know, our leaders absolutely championed flexible working and made no hesitation in saying, actually, no, can't have that meeting, actually need to go and pick the kids up from school. You guys, totally trust you in terms of the delivering on that. I need to head now. Or we would flex around, you know, times to speak with people. So it was about encouraging others that had joined the organisation that, yeah, they absolutely, we had the trust and confidence in them to do their job, but also look at our leaders, look at your senior management team. They lead by example in terms of what they do and being present. So similar to what John was saying, you know, people were present, not necessarily physically, but actually present in terms of what they were doing, you know, and how they were going about doing it and how they were acting. And again, that you can't put a price on having your leaders demonstrate and lead by example. It's absolutely key, you know, because people then they feel they have that permission if they're new to the organisation.
Brilliant, thank you. John, how about you and your team?
Similar to Heather, really, to be fair. You know, it's like pushing on an open door for us in terms of our leadership team. You know, at the end of the day, they've got families too, and that's been their experience of that, is the fact that obviously we've had to lead in terms of how we've demonstrated this, in terms of obviously wrapping around and making sure that, you know, families can be present. You know, so if you are dropping your child off at school, that is what you are doing, and you could be totally, you know, engaged in terms of that. The other part for us is just to, you know, effectively just make sure you're creating lots of ways to gather the opinions of all your people, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. Is we want to really get the best out of people, but we've got to engage with them, we've got to listen. And that's the thing that really helps us drive, is where we listen to our people, we get great value for that, and then obviously when we act on that, that makes a huge difference for them and us.
Brilliant, thank you. Very interesting, that business of involving people in what you're doing. One of the things that really struck me, and again, it was a theme through all three of your presentations, was this idea that flexibility isn't static, and it also requires participation from both sides. And obviously for you, John, a lot of it would be around the school term and the different demands that will come to the business. So that business of having two-way flexibility, was that organic within your business? And if it wasn't, are there any tips that you would encourage people to follow to develop that understanding of two-way flexibility?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the interesting part is that, you know, and similar to Sarah, where you've got maybe an older term in terms of obviously working hours, but then the part there is of when we're needed. So sometimes, for obviously, you know, we might be doing a session that we consider a twilight, so we would go after school hours. So obviously, you know, it can definitely, you know, be something that's driven from your business, but at the same time, obviously, it's the things that obviously we're just looking at for obviously how we can support the different styles in terms of when people work and obviously the times of when they work. So it's just very much so opening that dialogue, talking about what works best for us, and then obviously what works best for our creators. But at the same time, we just found ways in which it can definitely be a part of who we are and what we do. It's not been something that's been so rigid, and definitely when obviously, you know, certain sessions we have to be there before the school opens to set up and be engaged. But then, you know, that's not every day. So it's just and you know, a lot of time when people say flexible work, they just think about about working from home. It's not necessarily about that. It's also thinking about the times in which people work and giving our people the flexibility to wrap it around what they do. But, you know, it comes, I think Heather's talked about it, it's a trust thing. It's right. Okay. It's the fact that we know we've got high quality people that care so much, and releasing them to do that in the times when it works around them, I think is just, you know, it just feels natural to us.
I've done that famous thing. I was on mute. Sarah, how about any tips in terms of that? You know, have there been points within the business that for you that asking for that bit more in terms of flexibility from your staff team? How did that go?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, actually. We haven't needed to because you know, because of the type of business that we're in. One of the shifts that we made when I was referring to the productivity earlier, we've gone from measuring input activity to output activity. And what we've actually found is that people are doing the same amount of physical work, but they're getting much, much better results from it. And because of the type of organization we are, that the more people deliver for the business, the more they actually earn, because it's, you know, kind of linked to sales. It's been quite self-managing, because people are seeing that, you know, I can be more successful, I can be more productive. And by almost conversely, by giving them the choice to not be, they choose to be. And so it's created a really positive spiral for us. The only time that there's needed to be a conversation around, you know, we need more from you, is actually on occasions. There have been some occasions, probably just around the edges, where people have misunderstood what flexibility means. Mostly that's been to do with childcare, where, you know, I think anybody with children knows that it can be notoriously difficult to concentrate. And I think, you know, what are the boundaries around flexible working? What does it mean to do with when you do have childcare, when you don't have childcare? Is that time off? Is that just being flexible? And so the only more difficult conversations have been really around putting those boundaries in place. And as I said earlier about having a policy, that's actually what prompted us to put our own policy in place, because we realized we weren't being clear enough. But I appreciate that our business model probably lends itself quite well to creating that spiral without having to force it in a way that maybe other businesses don't have the luxury of.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. And Heather, how about for you guys?
Yeah, so if anything, we've had to really focus on individual well-being, because people are doing too much, because they are so engaged, they are so focused in terms of the best outcomes for our recipients, our disabled people across Scotland and Northern Ireland. So a massive part of my role is about well-being and creating those opportunities for well-being and that self-care. So again, that keeps me accountable as an individual. It absolutely keeps me accountable as a professional. But again, it goes back to that trust and confidence in that we trust you to do your job. If there's things that we have the opportunity to get involved in and respond to, and we saw that during the pandemic, we actually had to be mindful in terms of how much people were working and what they were doing. So we had things like COVID weekends, so we were really sort of forcing people's hands in terms of taking that time out, you know. And again, it's about giving them that permission, because people were going over and above, because they wanted to support recipients in the best possible way. They wanted to work flexibly. So we just have to always be really mindful in our organisation in terms of individual well-being. And we put that back to individuals in terms of, you have a responsibility as much as we have a responsibility, do you know? But there's never been the case where we've actually had to overtly ask people to lean in. People have come to us and said, we need to do this, we need to respond to this. Give us the capacity to do this, or here's what we're dropping in terms of our priorities in order that we can respond to this. And we've turned things around. And as an organisation, we have openly rewarded people for that in terms of time off. We can't pay bonuses and things like that because we're governed by Scottish Government, but we've turned around and given people time away again to recharge. We talk about that as well. And we actively encourage people to take holidays. We're really quite mindful in terms of people wanting to sell holidays, because we're like that, well, why can't you take them, do you know? So I suppose it's turned on its head, but similar to what Sarah was saying, you know, that flexibility is it's fantastic.
Thank you. One of the questions, and I'm going to put them together because we don't have a lot of time left now, is in terms of the investment cost to introduce or to increase flexibility, and then your measurements of productivity. Sarah, I'm going to come to you first because I know you do already measure the productivity, but was there an investment cost in introducing flexibility?
No, I don't think there was, because as Heather was just saying, what inadvertently happens is people work harder and they deliver more. So, you know, when we see our productivity going up, that feeds directly through to earnings for our people, through to profit for us. And so I wouldn't say that there was for us. I think probably where the investment came was in some of the marketing and creating a real narrative around it. We put quite a lot of energy into creating a new employer brand to show people we were serious about it. So it was more the fun stuff that went with it that we spent some money on.
Great. Good to hear. John, what about your business?
I mean, you know, definitely in terms of some of the things that we've done, obviously, you know, it's difficult really when you're talking about it, because like I would say that when you're attracting talent, you're putting a value on that. If you've got the right person and they're engaged and that's the hours that they're working on, that's how they're approaching it, then you've got value for money. It's for me to be able to say, right, okay, that, you know, that person, when I've interviewed people and we talked about flexible, I talked about obviously a recent recruit we did, and we lost or we gained somebody that I thought, right, okay, well, this is the person I want to work with and I was excited to work with. And they chose to come work with us because we had that flexible working and things. So therefore, you know, in terms of value, I'd find it difficult to quantify it in terms of that, but I would say that you're missing out, right? So if you're talking about a cost to your business, right, you might miss out on great talent, you know, to add to your business because you haven't got a flexible working policy. That's the only way I would do it. Maybe that's quite a politician's answer, but I think that's probably the best way I come at it.
I'd vote for you any day, John. Heather, how about for you guys? Did you have a look at an investment cost of introducing flexible working?
No, I couldn't put like a financial cost on it, Jane, but what I could do is about the time and energy and the fact that we lead by example. So there's that expectation that from the outset, literally as soon as you make contact with ILS as a recruit or you join us, we're talking about flexible working. And actually, we don't always have to remind people in terms of flexible working because it's so inherent and it's the norm. Brilliant. So if anything, we're investing that time as people join us to help them understand what that looks and feels like. And again, reminding them and ensuring that they feel they have permission because they may have come from a very different environment. And I was one of those people. It took me about 6 months not to keep asking, oh, is it okay if I do this or that? It's like we don't care. Just we do care, but we don't. Yeah. We know you're doing your job.
We don't have a preference about it. Just yes.
Yeah. Just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? And yeah.
I'm going to go to that one last piece of advice. Heather, what's the one piece of advice you'd give an SME starting or progressing on this journey?
Trust and confidence from the outset. Literally, as soon as somebody engages with you and wants to join you or is interested, trust and confidence.
John?
Just gather those opinions, listen to people, open that dialogue and start to talk about it and see where it can lead you in terms of that journey to support your business.
Fabulous. Sarah?
I think my advice would be to make sure you don't only do this in isolation. If you create a beautiful, flexible working model, but the whole of the rest of your business is really rigid, it's not going to stick and people won't believe it. So it needs to be backed up with the way that the business is being operated too.
Brilliant. Thank you all so much. This has been fascinating. I've absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. And special thanks to our panel for their insights. I'm going to go through this really quickly because we're actually at time now. And I wanted to let you know that Working Families has just launched a support package, especially for SMEs. It's been specifically designed to help SMEs support parent and carer employees so you can boost staff retention, productivity, and employee well-being. We'll be in contact after this webinar to give you some more information about that. Please do get in touch if you're interested in learning more. Thank you. And from the whole of the team and from our panelists, happy National Work-Life Week. We hope you have a great week, lots of fun, very productive. And go on and enjoy your weeks, everybody. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, John. Thanks, Heather. Great to have you with us. Bye, everyone.